Hello, hello, hello. Um, Jeremy Southard here, working on my 3D printer, and I thought this might make a good episode 3. Jeremy Makes Stuff. I justified it in my own mind as Jeremy makes this 3D printer work again. We'll see how that goes. Um, right now, I've got the camera pointing at the printer, and the printer is on, which is a good sign. Um, it's been in not really in storage, but it's been put away on a shelf for a few months. Actually, since we moved this place since January. Um, Back in December, I started getting some errors with the printing, and never really had the time or had a lot of other stuff going on, so didn't really look at it. Um, this printer was one of the things that survived Hurricane Harvey about a year ago, a little over a year ago now. So it did not get wet. It was actually in the makerspace I was a member of at the time, and it was in a upstairs area. So the water got to about waist high on the second story, and this printer was on a table, so just a little above waist high. So this is a CTC 3D printer. It's a Chinese knockoff of the MakerBot Dual. See over here, there's two extruders. Right now, I just have a chunk of filament shoved in the hole here. I don't have the supports on the back for the spools right now, and what filament is in the extruders is a little bit old, so I'm not sure how well that's going to work out. I'm going to have to heat it up and push it through and hope for the best. But the biggest problem was it would not connect to Simplify 3D, which is the application I use to send files to the printer. And back whenever I first started having problems, it would print from the SD card for 20% of the print just fine. Then it would start to offset. So I thought maybe it was the firmware or something. But what I mean by offset, let's say, for example, if it was printing this ring here, and it would get about 20% of the way through, well, then each subsequent layer be shifted over further and further, sort of like a stair step like this, where in reality it should have just been a solid piece going straight up. So I had several failures with that, got frustrated, had other stuff going on with house repairs and all this other kind of stuff. So it's been several months since I've looked at this. Um, but right off the bat, I just plugged it in, turned it on. It has power. I can control the stepper motors from the controls here on the front, which you can kind of see through my monitor stand that is actually just a plastic bucket. So I was just trying to connect it to the Simplify 3D program, and it wasn't connecting. You can see back here I had the that again. I had to open up computer management, was looking at the port information and port settings and all this kind of stuff, um, and some research here on the internet. Let me switch scenes back. Yeah, some research here, and there was one piece of information I found that said I needed to open up MakerBot Desktop, which apparently was installed previously, but I didn't realize. Go to Services and Stop Background Service. And once I did that, see right now it says Background Service not available because I stopped them. Well, now you can see. Background service not available. Once I stop them, it appears, yes, I am connected to the 3D printer in by 3D. On COM9, baud rate, go to the jog controls. Let's make sure. Oh, not positive. Or that was extrusion. Oh, yep. So things are moving around. I am in control through the software. So it's a good thing. It's working out. Let's see now if that's working. Maybe I can send a test print. So let's see here. Open a new tab and go to Tinkercad. Sign in. All right, 1 sec. Let me sign in over here. Password. All right. Got a bunch of various projects in here. And a lot of times I leave their silly names. Power for Elzing, Kirkan, Amazing Crunk, Ingenious Snicket, and some other stuff I've played with. Let's see if I have a good sample thing to put. Oh, I'll just make something new. Tinkercad's pretty cool because it's a very simple computer-aided drafting, web-based program. Very drag and drop. Here you can see it has all these primitive shapes and text and things like that. And I'm just going to drag and drop a box over here. To see, height right now is 20. I'm just going to go down to 12, and I'm going to do a cylindrical hole in the middle of it. Small. And shift click to highlight both, and align them to their centers. And now group them. So I've got this square. That was strange. Heard a sound. I don't know what that was. Ungroup them. Make this oval cylinder more of a circle cylinder. Yeah, 13 by 13. Both center, center. I've got this nice square with a circle or a round hole in the middle. And export this. It's an STL file. Yeah. Swanky Crunk Albert. All right. Now come over here and import the model. It's probably in downloads full. It's got all kinds of crazy stuff in there. Swanky. All right, so now it shows it here. Full square with the circle in the middle. Now I know that this is not going to be enough filament to print that entire model, but I just want to see if I can get a few things going here without any issues. I don't need to print the whole thing, but I will go back and look at the, whoops, sorry about that. Go back and look at the layer settings. see under process 1. Okay, first of all, this is going to be right extruder, and it's fine. Primary layer height, it's fine. Layers, top saw layers 3, bottom saw layers 3, or shell 2. It's good. Skirt is fine, but no raft. So the difference here, a skirt or brim, when it goes to print the item, it'll first do an outline around it, and then it'll start printing it. It sort of primes the filament in the extruder there. A raft, it's kind of like what it sounds like. If you think of the printer bed as the water, it'll do a platform that it will then print the item on first. Um, and as you can see here, there's different, you can choose which extruder. Maybe you can't see. Let me back over. For the skirt, for the raft, there's also some other stuff going on here. Prime pillar, boot shield. You can actually choose which extruder to do. So one of the benefits of a dual head extruder is that you could have two different materials. Some like a lemon juice soluble material on one side uses supports with ABS or PLA on the other. So use the one material as the supports for overhangs and um, holes and things, so that other pieces will print. So the piece will actually print smoothly, and then once you dunk it in whatever will dissolve it, it just dissolves away. Um, a lot of single extruder printers still work fine with supports and things like that. It's just, it knows, I'll actually show you on the support tab. If you generate support material, it'll actually, it'll still use the same extruder side and the same filament, but like it'll set the infill differently, and you can do some spacing and all that, so it's easy to just kind of break the little piece out. And the difference is, so for example, if it's going to 3D print one of these spool holders, I want to print it standing up and it doesn't need any supports. If we're to print it this way, you can see right through there. So to print the top part of it, you would need supports under it, because you can't just print in thin air because it would sag and fall and all that. So this is actually better printed this way, but if you were to print in this direction, which would be kind of weird, but that's okay. It's just an example. You would have to have supports inside, and then once it was done printing, you could break the supports out. Or if it was a two different materials, one that dissolved when you dunked it in, whatever dissolves it, it would dissolve away. So anyway, let's see here now. If I'm not going to do any supports, infill, it's fine. Temperature, bed at 75. It's a little warm. Set it to 65. And the right 230. Get down to 220. I'm using, this is a PLA. If it was ABS, I'd need a little hotter temperature, but fine for now. Cooling, I don't actually have a fan attachment. Some of the CTCs I've seen, I have some friends or various makerspaces that have them. I have another fan that attaches, so it blows cold air onto the actual print as it does each layer, because the plastic comes out hot. So the sooner it's cool, the better it is for the next layer to go on top of it. Otherwise, it could be a warping or whatever. I'm not going to mess with the speeds or anything. Infill percentage, 10%, that's fine. Right extruder only. fast PLA. So that looks pretty good. So I can tell it to prepare to print, this button down here, and actually generates the G code. And I can zoom in here, and you can see where the actual lines are going to go. And you can even sort of preview it. It's going to show, here's the tool head, there it's doing the skirt. And since I specifically told it to do 2 shells, see it did the 2 lines for the square, 2 lines for the circle, now it's filling in. So this is basically simulating what the 3D printer is going to do. Speed that up. So see, once it gets past the second layer, maybe it was 4? Oh, we'll see. Okay, it was 3. See, now it's only doing 10% for each layer. So it'll be faster after it gets past the first 3. And then the very last 3, see, now you can kind of see down in there. It's just a lattice pattern there instead of solid plastic. But it knows when it's getting to the end and the last 3 solid again. Now, like I said, I don't believe I have that much filament on here. This says it's going to take about 31 minutes. I have noticed it usually takes a little bit longer than that. Filament length 641 millimeters. That sounds like a lot. 0.93 grams of plastic, 9 cents plastic, and I don't remember if that includes electricity or not. But so there's all kinds of fun statistics and stuff you can do here. So I am going to try to just begin printing over USB. And the printer has already started. See here, it homed X and Y and Z. That was a little louder than I like, but it has been sitting idle for several months. We need to clean the rails or clean the belt, maybe oil it a little bit. I don't actually have any oil for it. Figure out what to do. And now it's just heating up. Down here, I think it's difficult to see on the screen, but it actually shows it's heating. The platform right now is at 66 degrees, and it wants to be at 65, so it's worked that out. The right extruder is currently at 35, trying to increase to 220. These are all in Celsius. And the left extruder is not doing anything right now. So this is heating up. You can see the fan is kicked on here now too. And this is a pointer, I guess. You can see right here where the filament, that white spot right there, some dried filament there. So I'm hoping once this gets up to temperature, I'll start flowing again, and I can use this excess on top to kind of give it a little shove and get it going real good. Let's see. So it's already up to 115 degrees out of the 220. So it heats up pretty quick. 125. So I'm set up a little differently here. Obviously, I'm not on the camera. I'm off to the left of it. And it's pointing at the 3D printer, which is on my desk. So I am over here to the left. I shifted my green screen over to go behind it so that it'd be easier to see what's going on here. But I didn't turn on the chroma key filter because it looked kind of weird with the 3D printer just sort of floating in front of the background. While this is heating up, I'm just kind of looking at it. Let's see if, oh, here we go. That movement. So first, it starts with a little line of filament. It is moving a little bit. And the bed's not exactly level. Having a little trouble pushing it through there. Yeah, it's making some noise. The printer is connecting and disconnecting. I hear the little USB on and off noise. It seems to have paused printing. That's not cool. And it stopped. Well, let's see if printer is reconnected. Machine control. Okay, it's reconnected now. Maybe. No, it's not sending anymore. Emergency stop. All that did was disconnect. It didn't actually do anything to the printer. Usually, when you hit emergency stop on the application, it rehomes the extruders and drops the bed all the way down so that you can access whatever going on there. Right. Error opening selected. So no, it's not reconnecting. Just turn it off, turn it back on. I did hear the USB disconnect. USB connection. Tone, whatever. Try to connect. Okay, connected right back. See, I'm going to turn the extruder back on here in the software at 220. That heat back up, and I'm going to try to extrude a little bit. Drop the bed. Switch this back here. You can see it did print a little bit, but just kind of a mess right here. Blob. And it got the starter line here. But then, like I said, the bed's not leveled because I'm just trying to get it to work here, but the bed's a little bit high. It drug across the tape here. And there's actually a line there. Let's move this off. Extruder's still reheating. Still reheating. Reheating again. Just reheating. Switch back to this view. So again, right here, just heating up the extruder. See if I can push through a little bit. This is looking pretty messy right here. Clean some of that off. Kind of a plastic blob here. Looks like there's mayonnaise on the end of it or something. Yeah. Plastic. Get off of there. I am pushing it myself. There we go. Try and start coming through clean. It's not coming through quite straight. It's going at an angle, which is why it's starting to ball up there. So that means there may be plastic stuck up in there still. Got a couple of options. I have a extruder cleaning tool somewhere. It's like a long, thin piece of wire that you can jam in there. Halloween going on there. Or instead, though, I think I'm just gonna really crank up the heat, push through there, and see if it'll just kind of melt itself out, burn itself out. Let's see, 300. I don't remember what the thresholds are. is pushing as I go through. There it is. And as I push it, oh, look at that. Now it's coming out smooth. Straight. So that might have, just by heating it up a little bit more, it might have been enough. It's starting to ball up a little there, but yeah. Okay, that worked. Back off. Yeah, it's steaming a little. Some it got so hot. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little bit of steam coming off the plastic. It comes out because it's heated up a bit past its expected point. The PLA, like I said, is usually around 220, 230. So right now the extruder's cooling back down, but it's at 250 right now, so it's still pretty warm as far as the plastic is concerned. That's coming out in a straight line, so that's good. But if there was a little bit of a clog there, I think it's out of the way. Now, let's see. The communication might be a problem, though. Thing is, hey, Stinger 839. Well, I think it was clogged. That was the the first lapse. Just a bit ago, when it was running, it actually dropped the connection to the computer. One thing I do know is when it's powered off, if I manually move the motors, it'll push a little juice back through and like the screen might light up or something. So I wonder if, since it's been several months, that the rails may have a little more resistance and the belts may need to be cleaned. So it might have pushed back and caused the AT Mega that's running it to drop the connection or something. I don't know. I'm guessing here right now. But I think, let's see if I can get the rest of that plastic out of the way from the first failed attempt. So let's try for another failed attempt. Right. Let's see, that's all cool back down. I'm just gonna foam all the axes. Oh. I heard the disconnect tone just then. And it was when the motor was moving, and now there's no communication. I bet I don't actually have control of it right now. Right, yeah, it's not actually connected. Reconnect. Error. So a minute ago when it did this, I had to actually turn it off and turn it back on. So I just unplug the USB, get back in, connect. Okay. But if it's disconnecting, problem. All right, well, let's see. Try this again. I don't know. I don't expect it to do anything different than before. I expect it to fail. But so it'll fail consistently? I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Let's see, Stinger 839. Do you have any experience with 3D printers? I know there's also a little bit of delay here with the video. Just this big screen. So it did actually work at one time. There's some extra pieces here that I printed actually for the printer itself. I have some Raspberry Pis that are in some 3D printed cases. Let's see, Stinger 839 says, other than my mom 3D printing me. No, LOL. Well, that's pretty personal experience with 3D printing, I guess. Let's see. Still heating up. The right extruder is at 156, trying to get to 220. The bed is already at 65. It's pretty warm to the touch. Stinger 839 says, I've read a pedantic rant on how they're not actually printers, but extruders. Well, it does. These are literal extruders, but the whole thing itself is a printer. You know, I mean, you could say it is making an impression of the plastic on the bed, potentially. Right? You got the starter line, rim. The bed's still not level, so it's not exactly sticking. But we're still communicating, which is what's important. Yep, still got communication going on here. Not sure if this is going to last. We'll see. So anyway, is it a printer or is it an extruder? I mean, technically, a paper printer, like if you're going to print a document, you send it to a printer, but really it's a set of gears that pull a piece of paper through. I mean, I don't know. I could see an argument either way, I guess. But yeah, the printer itself has two extruders. So it's all just words. Words have no meaning for some people. See, that's actually doing pretty good now that it got past the first layer. I'm definitely going to run out of plastic. I'm not sure if you can hear the motors running over here. They're kind of singing. Let's see if I can lean the microphone a little bit closer. I got some compression and stuff on the mic too, so. But seems to be going well. So if the USB connection stays solid, it's going to work. So if it's a USB issue, it could be on the computer side, it could be on the printer side, it could be the wire itself. Switch this back to the bigger screen. Now, as I mentioned before, the previous error I was having is it's printing the layers, and after a certain point, it would start to offset. It would be about 20% through the print. So right now I can see on screen we're at 12%. So we'll see a couple of things. One, if the USB connection stays. Two, once we get to 20%, do the layers start to offset. And then if this all seems to work, I will try and print directly from the SD card. There's a SD card port over on the side over here, and there are some files on there already too. This is going to run out of plastic pretty quickly. Just pull some more off of the roll and kind of hot swap it shove it in there. Because if this is going to keep going, I'm going to let it keep going. Well, maybe not. It claims it's going to take 31 minutes. But I'm going to at least get to 20%. We're starting to get low on the filament. It's just right above the camera can see. Come on, printer. Now, so I was talking about the motors making noise, and there are some specific tones and things like that. There are actually designs on Thingiverse for specific printers. It prints some weird looking, cube with spikes or whatever. It's like, what is this for? Well, it's set up so that the G code causes the motors to move in a certain way that it plays a song, like Happy Birthday or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, or whatever. So it's pretty interesting. I've never tried it. There might be some from my printer. Some files already created for it to do that. It's kind of neat, but I don't know. I really have the time to mess with that. See, we're at 18%. This, you can see the percentage right here, probably. 18%. Everything seems to be okay. Still plugging along. I'm trying not to move the USB wire. It's kind of running in front of my keyboard right now because the printer's off to the left and the computer's off to the right. Yeah. That's going surprisingly smooth, even though the first layer was too close. All right, we're at 20%. It's hoping. Filament's getting low too. See if I can adjust camera a little bit, or a lot of it. Okay, you can see right here the end of the filament. So I'm going to do a Indiana Jones isn't really a good reference for it, but kind of an Indiana Jones and swap in another piece. If it's going to keep going after 20%. I don't see any stair-stepping layers. The bed is almost low enough for the camera to see the layers. The fans make it look like a cute robot grooving out. Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? Should put some googly eyes right in the center of the fans. Let's see. It's getting closer. Come on, little buddy. There's actually a little bit of space in there. Now, I don't know if you noticed that whenever the it swaps layers, it'll actually retract a little bit and poke back out as it moves, so it doesn't streak across any of the layers or bump into them or whatever. Okay, all the way down in the hole. Start to manually feed this a little bit. There's still some distance to go before it actually gets in there. I'm trying not to have any dead air while I'm doing stuff here, but I also gotta make sure I can see in here. Come on, you can take it. Manually feed it a little bit. I feel it pushing back whenever it goes over the layer, so it's still not quite there. I think I feel the extruder pulling. Oh, not sure if that took. It did. I think that worked. Let's see, is it actually moving? Oh yeah. Nice. Okay. I feel the extruder pulling it in. And we're 30% with no stair stepping. See if I can try and get a better shot here with the camera. Or if I just mess up the whole setup altogether. Right up on it. Up a little bit. Yeah, there. As you can see, the layers appear to be going in, or going down? Going on? The layers appear to be printing without stair stepping. Let's see if I set this here. A couple more layers and it'll be down in the camera's view. Cool. So if that works, so maybe what I'll do, I'll look on Amazon and see if there's some kind of a like high quality USB cable or something. It's USB A on one side and USB B on the other. So it's not like I can just get any old USB cable, and I don't want to have to get a bunch of adapters because each adapter, I assume, could give some additional latency or issues or something. But this is good. It's working out. A little surprised it was this easy. But like I'm expecting something to go wrong, but it's to be okay. We're now at 35%. No issues. Actually, the application says 35%, but on the printer, it says we're at 44% on the printer screen. So let me see if I can get a good shot of that. No weird stuff going on here. Yo, maybe. Yeah, see, 45% with the right extruder temperature and the platform temperature. Extruder's still off. Let's back up. I've got this really cool dolly thing. It looks like a roller skate within some segments on it, and then a clip on the top for a camera. So you can actually rotate the wheels and do like some panning dolly shots and stuff, and it's supposed to be really smooth. Obviously, it's not smooth if you're jerking it around and trying to line things up using the segments. There we go. That's about straight. 47%. Still looks good. There does appear to be one layer that was kind of funky, but I think that was probably because I was shoving the other piece of filament in there. That was about for a layer or so, and I may have been giving it a little too much force just to make sure the extruding mechanism actually gripped the filament. This is good. I don't mean to be such a pessimist about it, but I'm kind of surprised, waiting for something to go wrong. Cool. Now back on the computer screen here, you can actually see the This is a live preview tracking. You can set the update interval right now every 5 seconds. I can actually change that to 1 second. And you can see it's showing where the head is. I can go, yep, half a second. It's tracking about where the print head is. You can see in the bottom right corner. It's pretty neat to be able to see what's going on. Although there may be some latency in what it's drawing versus, I think this is just, since it's simulated and, there's some maybe time dilation, I guess. I don't know. Between the commands being sent over USB actually going to the printer, especially since the printer says 52% and the program here says 42%. So, who knows? The layers are still looking good, looking smooth. It's good. It's good news. Now here, you can see it's got the speed millimeters per minute. And it's color coded because the faster it goes, it's red. Because, well, I don't know if it's because, but the faster it goes, the less precise it becomes, right? It's like driving a car. If you're going to go 120 miles an hour versus going 20 miles an hour, you can make much more precise turns at 20 and at 120. Now imagine 100 versus 9,000. 55%. So if this works out, let's see. Stinger 839 says, I don't know anything about these, but maybe the problem is that the platform gets off at some point and not a problem with the head, especially if it happens the same height each time. Well, it's not the same height each time. Previously, it was at 20% of the print, but the print could be, as tall as this ring or as tall as the cylinder. And 20% is definitely a different height. The X, Y, and Z axis points are pretty stable, each one being controlled with the motor. The Z-axis here has this one big, thick, threaded rod in the back here. Now, some people say the CTC printer needs or has a problem with that thread rod shifting back and forth sometimes. And there's a piece on Thingiverse that you can actually print that clips on, and at the top, up here somewhere, behind the little panel that says CTC, I think, or at the top of it or whatever, so that these guide rods hold the thread rod in place so it doesn't shift at the top. Because as you can imagine, if at the base it moves just a little bit further up the axis or whatever, it's not really an axis, it's just a threaded rod. The further up you go, the more the movement is prevalent, right? So like if I'm holding this here and I just move a little bit at the bottom, I guess this way, I'm only moving a little bit at the bottom, but the top is moving a lot more. So I've never actually noticed it. Some people swear by it, other people don't. Thread rod shifting or not, tomato, beef or chicken. I don't know, Taco Tuesday. It's almost 11 p.m. I guess I'm a little goofy right now. See, this says we're at 62% on the machine. There's 55% on the screen. I tend to believe the machine a little bit better because once it gets to 100%, it's going to stop. Which is interesting though, because usually I could be remembering this wrong, but I thought the machine was behind what it's on the screen because the computer has to actually send it, so the computer should be ahead. But I don't know. So I've got a square peg with a round hole. Not sure what I'm going to do with that. If it's a successful print, I'll stick it here on my monitor as a reminder, a memento, a trophy that the 3D printer is now working. And all it took was episode 3 of Jeremy Makes Stuff. And in this case, stuff that's being made is the 3D printer is being made to work, hopefully. Let's see. So if you had access to a 3D printer, if you had one or were a member of a makerspace, or actually I think the UPS stores are now putting some in, what are some things that you might create? You can leave me a message in the comments. Tell me what you think about that. Like I said, I've got some Raspberry Pi cases that I've 3D printed. Use those for various projects, and some pieces for the printer, like these corner pieces. The purpose of the corner pieces, um, it's flat here on top, is because if you're using ABS, you're supposed to enclose it. But since the corners on the CTC are open, like here, um, there's a certain design for a cover for the top. It wouldn't fit because you need a corner angle like so, and it goes all the way to the corner. Without that, I guess it would slip or something. I don't know, but I thought they looked cool, so I printed them. I also printed some originally some little feet here for all 4 corners, and there's a little soft pad on the bottom. At the office, I have a 3D printed phone stand on my desk, as well as a 3D printed headphones holder. Stinger839 says, I know exactly what I want. I want a British phone booth that is a mobile phone stand / charging hub. That's cool. Would you go with blue and it would be more like Doctor Who themed? Or does the color really matter? One thing that's interesting about the 3D printed parts, back this up again. Once it's printed, you know, I've got filament all kinds of different colors: red, blue, green, black, white, clear, wooden. Um, the wooden filament's really interesting. It's actually made with the plastic as well as sawdust. Whenever the filament is made, so it smells like a wood shop whenever it's being printed. Stinger839 says yes, blue because I like blue. That's good reason. I also like Jelly Babies, and that has nothing to do with Doctor Who. But anyway, so even if all I had was the green and I wanted something blue, I could print it in green and then I could paint it. So I've always thought that's pretty cool. I've attempted to paint a few prints before. I'm not exactly the best at it. There's all kinds of different things you can do, like you can sand it first, or with PLA, it'll actually dissolve in acetone. Is it PLA or is it ABS? One of the two. And you can actually use like an acetone mist for a short amount of time, and it'll smooth out the edges. I've actually used a hair dryer before. I had a print that was almost perfect, but had one side that was kind of out, warped just a little bit. and had some uh, pieces kind of poking out of it. So I put it on the bathroom counter on top of a towel, hit it with a hairdryer real quick, and then use some cardboard to kind of smooth it back out. And because it melts at 220 degrees Celsius, the air dryer or the hair dryer was warm enough to do that. What is 220 Celsius in Fahrenheit? Yeah, 428. So it's actually hotter than the oven was this evening for the butternut squash. That was only at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Which that brings up another point about the plastic parts. So you can 3D print something, and depending on the material you use, it will have different temperature thresholds. And like I have an antenna stand. Let's see, I'll pull it up for you. CAD. So I have this very large Wi-Fi antenna, and I built a stand for it. And part of that included this piece here. Just funky Django Jofo. Like I said, the Tinkercad default names are pretty funny. But so this piece, the antenna's pole goes through the middle, and then there's a lock screw on the side, and then some wooden pieces come up on the edges. So I 3D printed this with PLA at, I think, 40% infill. So it's not 100% full plastic. There's some gaps and stuff, just like how what we're printing right now has this lattice. This is only 10%. Um, but I believe I printed this at 60. Um, and I left it in the car before, and it's actually out in the garage right now. Well, it's been, 110 degrees outside. Um, that's still not really going to affect the plastic, because normally it's extruded at 428 degrees Fahrenheit. So if it's 100 degrees outside, it's not necessarily going to cause a problem. Now, I have seen articles where somebody had printed like some geodesic shapes or whatever, and it's really thin plastic, and left it out in the car, and it was sitting on the dashboard in the sun or whatever, and it warped because of the heat. But I think part of that also has to do with the amount of plastic and the angles and all that other kind of stuff too. So let's see here. Where are we now? We're at 85%. I think this is actually going to finish. This is exciting. Right. Let's see here. This. So you can see also down here there's some mess. I try not to leave the mess down there too long, because the mess will start to get pretty bad if I, whatever I pull, I've just tossed down here. At the makerspace, we actually had a container for the for bad prints or for the trash bits, broken up specifically by material type, so ABS, PLA, PETG, whatever. And I heard there was some facility where you could take this stuff and they would recycle it and actually break it all down and then turn it into rolls of filament again, which is why it had to be split up by type. I assume the colors would then eventually run together or whatever, and wouldn't actually, you wouldn't get like, a multicolored spool of filament, which I think would be kind of cool. But I think it just ended up being sort of a gray after all the colors meshed together. And that's another thing that's interesting. Talking about the 220 degrees for the PLA. It actually matters on the color too, because to do the different colors, there's different additives that may go in there. So I've actually got a really cool dark green, like a forest green. But whatever the additives are that are in it, I have to turn the temperature down to like 215 instead of 220. Otherwise, it just comes out a big goopy mess, and there's streaking and blobbing and all kinds of issues. So, um, you know, plastic is plastic, but um, whatever changes the colors can actually change the makeup of the material. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So now that it appears the printer's working again, there's a few things I need to do. I need to print for around the house. First of all, there is switch. Where did my window go? I must close the window. All right, window up. Tinkercad, not Tinkercad, Thingiverse. Thingiverse is a cool website with tons and tons of stuff that people have designed. You can print them out. You can modify them. If you modify it, you can then relist it as a remix of their stuff. But there is a. Let's see, let me sign in real quick. There is a part. I don't want to give it away just yet what it is. I kind of feel like you have to see it to understand. Okay. So if I go to my collections, and where would I have put it? Oh, in things to make. So you can actually find different things that people have made and put them into collections, like this little cool liftoff is the name of it. This little space shuttle with the clouds. That's so cool. Anyway, getting sidetracked. There's calendars and tanks and skulls, the Bristol stool chart. I'm not seeing it here. I'm going to search for it. So there's actually a search for dishwasher. This guy here. So this prints out in a single piece, I believe. Maybe two pieces. Is it two pieces or a single? It's two pieces. And if the dishes in the dishwasher are clean, it says clean dishes. And then, as you can see here, whenever clean it out, you can just slide it over. Now it says it's dirty dishes. Clean dishes, dirty dishes. It's got some spaces in here too for magnets, I believe. And there's also a version that doesn't say dishes, just clean or dirty. It's got a blank cover here versus the word dishes here. So you can just say clean or dirty instead of clean dishes, dirty dishes. Let's see, I think, yeah, 5 people have made it and posted it. See a couple of different versions here that people have done. I think there was a remix that broke the words out, maybe? Oh, our print's done. Oh, look at that. That's a surprise. Right. Some stringing here at the end. That's a solid piece of plastic. Let's see here. Since the bed wasn't quite right. Oh, it's still warm. not the plastic, but the bed. I twisted the print a little bit because it's thin. Oh yeah, since the bed wasn't exactly level, it stuck to the tape too hard. You can see the on the bottom there, maybe. Yeah, and I tore a little hole in the tape. So, but the tape is easy to replace. Now, while pulling it off, I squished it a little bit because the top was still warm. So I just warped it a little bit. The very top layer didn't exactly go very smooth, but as you can see on the side, see if I can camera to focus. Nope, not focused. Well, anyway, the the layers look good, and that was the problem before. They were stair stepping. So cool. That is a success. It's too bad I immediately pulled it off and squished it on the top, but that's okay. So, like I said, when I pulled that off, it tore the tape here a little bit, but this is just 3 strips of tape, and I can pull that center one off. Now, I use the blue painter's tape, specifically the blue painter's tape that does not have any words on the tape. The one that has the words on the tape didn't seem to stick to the bed for me for some reason. Replace the centerpiece. Come on. Tiger, who stopped by on the first episode, he actually uses what's called frog tape. And it's another type of painter's tape. I got some of that too, but I didn't want to try that tonight because initially I was messing with the green screen. And I didn't want the bed to disappear and blend in with the background. Just get a piece of tape here. And back you up again. Just line that up. I feel like I'm doing this at a weird angle. Alright. That's good enough. I didn't get quite long enough, but for now I'm not going to put anything way over on that edge. The primer line off of there. So cool, that was a success. Excited about that. I'm going to download this. Swap the scene back. So for items on Thingiverse, there's a download all files button here. There's also the thing files tab. Shows here. This particular one, I'm not going to download all files because I don't want the blank versions, but I do want the dirty sign part B01 and clean dirty sign part A01. So click those two, download them. Come back over here to Simplify 3D. Whatever that called it. Funky Django something. Import. Dirty sign part 1 and part 2. See, just dropped them in here. I can rotate them, move them around, whatever, if I wanted to. Let me put this guy over here. It's over here. Also, let's see. Could rotate on a different axis or whatever. This way. And also resize, make it bigger, make it smaller. Now, obviously, I can't print outside of the square of the printer. So if I tried to send this to the printer, it would tell me Nope, that's not going to work. Remove those and re-add them. So one thing that I've used before that works really well is a center and arrange. That just literally, whoops, um, centers the stuff. So like if I was going to make 3 of the dishes sign, I get it center and arrange, and it would rearrange everything in such a way that I could do it in a single print. Ah, come on. So those two, delete the other two. Center and arrange, pops them back in. Now with the what's it? You have the skirter brim with multiple pieces. It will actually outline all the pieces. So if I tell this prepare to print, and you can see here how it comes around the edges, and it actually goes under, as you can see. So you can see the brim is connected here but not here because there's a gap in that piece, because that is the upper piece that has to slide on top of the longer piece. Now I'm not sure which direction these pieces are supposed to lay to print. So let me look at the, you can see thing details. Sidewall edge, red clean, dirty. It's complete. See the sidewall edge form around dirty. Okay. These are some instructions here to change the colors, like I did earlier, where I sort of hot fed the filament in. That's not what I'm looking for. Orientation. Slicer orient. Clean dirty sign part B01. The word dishes at the bottom by rotating the x-axis 180 degrees. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So for this piece here, axis, the x-axis. Come on. What's going on here? Why is it only moving on the z-axis? I'm doing something. Is that what I wanted? I thought there was a way to bring up a larger menu here. Ah, there we go. So, rotate x-axis 180 degrees. I don't have to bring it back up above the line. Okay, that's better. So with it flipped over like that, there's less possibility of a screw up here, right? Because there was nothing under this. You can't print into nothing, so I'd have to do a whole bunch of supports. But now, let me prepare to print. And you can even see the brim goes all the way around both pieces, and you can see it spells the word, fills it in. And on the big piece here, it's doing the magnet holes, I think. And then as it gets closer to the top, it starts to leave out the space for the words. And this one is just building up the side pieces there. So I wonder too, so that says 2 hours and 2 minutes. If I rotate this back, now it says 2 hours. Huh, only difference in 2 minutes. But if I were going to print that way, we would need supports. Supports, generate supports. Okay. Print. That's saying 2 hours and 27 minutes. You can actually see inside here, there's sort of a pattern. It's a square lattice pattern here that it would print at a thinner distance so that you could easily break it out. Same thing over here in the circles for the magnet holes. But don't need that. I gotta fix the view here. Back out, put back over. Okay, so this guy, rotating in 180 degrees, center in a line. Okay, so before I go any further, I'm going to have to reattach my filament spool holders and pick out what color I want, feed that filament in, and start the print. So I think this was pretty successful. I'm not really sure what I did differently to make it start working. um, besides turn it off and on a bunch of times and jiggle the USB cable, I guess. But it is working, and I'm happy about that. So I think I'm going to call that an end of episode 3 of Jeremy Makes Stuff, fixing a 3D printer by just kind of messing with it. Let's see, Stinger 839, stuck with me now for a little while. Do you have any questions or comments here before we in the live stream? Bedtime for me too. Yeah, it's getting pretty late. It's almost 11:30, and gotta get up early. All right, well, thanks for hanging out, Stinger 839, and anybody else who happens to check out the episode in the morning. Please, if you like what you're seeing here, please like and subscribe. If you don't like what you're seeing, that's fine too. That's, I guess that's your decision. If you have any questions or comments, critiques, do you think a particular printer is better, or maybe a different slicer? Since I'm just using Simplify 3D, there's Cura, MakerBot has their thing. There's all kinds of different stuff going on. Let me know your thoughts on that. Also, the one of my Raspberry Pis is set up with Octoprint, which I want to get hooked back up. That is gives a networked web-based interface to just drag and drop files over. The printer doesn't have to be connected to the computer because it's connected to the Raspberry Pi, which is a computer, but it doesn't have to be connected to the computer running Simplify 3D, and you don't have to move SD cards around. You can just upload the file and it'll start printing. It also has a spot for the Raspberry Pi camera, so you can keep an eye on the print. If it's in the other room, or I don't know, you're just lazy, don't want to turn around and look at it. So I'm going to try and get that set back up. I might do that in another episode later down the line. But cool. I guess that concludes episode 3. And it was a little over an hour. I'll edit it back down a little bit too. So anyway, thanks again, Stinger839, for hanging out. And I will chat with you all later. Have a good night.